The immigration debate is officially underway here on Capitol Hill, and there is a lot to negotiate. The big question, is there a path to a solution or any kind of solution at all?
The gag order that was imposed last Friday was relatively lax. What it said was basically that Mueller's attorneys and Roger Stone's attorneys were not allowed to speak publicly about this case, not Roger Stone himself.
We were told also part of the reason why some of those buildings may have been evacuated is because they found some suspicious packages, which one staffer said they believed may have been a pipe bomb.
I can ask a follow-up to one of the doctors that if you allow children back in the schools, wouldn't that pose a threat to spreading the virus even further to some of those vulnerable
Well, I think the answer is obvious.
Oftentimes, drug smugglers are trying to blend in with those recreational voters. Democrats are going to have a very robust outreach effort to compete with this one here. They're very happy also with what they're seeing in Georgia, and they knew that this was going to be a very important state. Republicans in the House and the Senate have different ideas when it comes to policy and when it comes to strategy, and Democrats in the Senate don't even really want to participate at this point. This is an example of the cabin that the crew would reside in at night, and as you can see here, this mattress is no larger than a twin. All three of these Republicans really have been wavering in the aftermath of these allegations, and certainly will take today's testimony into their decision. We don't expect these to be available to kids until the end of 2021 or even into 2022.
Southwest 4465, use caution, just had an unauthorized laser illumination event.
It happens every single day. Cockpits lit up from handheld lasers. In this video from the Tampa Police Department, air traffic control directs officers to the scene of the crime.
I think it might be this guy that's sitting between these cars.
The angle that the laser likely came at us, it hits the window, and the window refracts all that light.
Captain Dennis Tager's cockpit was struck as he was trying to land a commercial jet.
We got through it safely, but that's the last thing I need to be thinking about when I'm coming in to land an airplane with 170 plus souls on board.
Yep. Oh, there it is. Okay.
There were more than 9,700 laser strikes on aircraft over the U.S. last year, injuring at least 47 pilots. The highly concentrated light can cause temporary blindness and in some cases lasting eye injuries.
We're getting laser struck out here.
The strikes often occur just as pilots are about to land. California, Texas, and Florida lead the nation in incidents.
The light spreads out. It would be similar to this, where you have a big wash of laser light.
Patrick Murphy is a laser safety expert. He serves on a committee advising the FAA and pilots about this growing problem.
So here we have a balloon, a very powerful laser, about 3 watts. I can pop this instantly close up.
He says the more powerful handheld lasers are easily purchased, even though sales are supposed to be restricted.
If we just banned the lasers entirely, which they did in Australia, they did that in New Zealand, and it didn't help. The rates kept going up there.
Pilots are trained to look away from the lasers if they see a strike coming. While there have been no crashes reported, the FAA says there's always an elevated risk.
We have 225 reports of pilot injuries associated with laser events over the last 7 years.
In Seattle, the FBI is now offering a $10,000 reward after a dramatic increase in laser incidents.
Sometimes people don't realize the risk associated with a small laser pointer, but these can reach up to tens of thousands of feet. I think other times we've had criminals actually acknowledge that they were pointing the laser at an aircraft on purpose.
Pointing a laser at an aircraft can lead to criminal charges and an $11,000 fine. The FAA is stepping up enforcement, issuing $120,000 in fines last year. In Washington, Samantha-Jo Roth, Spectrum News. More money, more problems. That's the reality several borrowers are facing after they applied for the small business loan program through multiple banks and ended up with twice the amount they expected.
Nobody expected this to happen, and it did happen. I don't know how they got through, but duplicate applications got through, and somebody needs to answer for that.
Rita Zapko, a business and tax consultant, discovered the error with several of her small business clients.
We saw the wires pending, and we were thinking, this is going to get halted at some point, and then the wires settled. Surprise, a few hours later, there's the money.
This exact scenario played out with other applicants. They showed us documentation that the loans had been approved and deposited right into their bank accounts by different lenders, almost simultaneously. What at least 5 of these applicants had in common, they applied through Chase or PayPal, and they received their funding late Friday evening.
There's nothing wrong with applying to multiple lenders. And obviously, hopefully, if you get one loan, you get one loan, and then the others are turned down.
But that's not what happened. Those who were funded twice say they submitted multiple applications with the same employer identification number. This should have been flagged by the Small Business Administration before it ever entered the agency's loan portal. Making this even more complicated for Chase and PayPal borrowers, they were forced to accept the money up front or lose the loan. This made it impossible to reject the funds before it hit their accounts.
Should there have been a spot to say, yes, I approve or decline before the funds came? Possibly.
Chase Bank acknowledges they're aware of the double funding issues, telling us a handful of customers have reported that they were also funded by another institution as well. The SBA will respond to each customer directly and determine the next steps. The SBA has not responded to our request for comment. Senator Marco Rubio, the architect of the loan program, says those who receive duplicate payments will not be penalized if they're upfront about the error.
I would certainly document it, put it in writing, send the SBA a letter so you have it in writing. Contact your lender in writing as well. Tell them you want to send the money back because you've gotten 2 loans. What they can't do is obviously spend it.
This latest snag means this program could be even more susceptible to fraud.
I think most people are going to return them very quickly because they're afraid that they accidentally just committed a crime, but you're going to have a percentage of people that aren't going to give the money back.
In Washington, Samantha-Jo Roth, Spectrum, Bay News 9.
There isn't a whole lot of coral left in the Southeast Florida region.
3 miles off the Florida Keys, 4 scientists in a small boat are racing to stop a mysterious killer.
I think people would be very shocked to know that within 2 weeks, a small colony can be dead.
Karen Neely, a coral ecologist at Nova Southeastern University, is leading this group, attempting to slow the infection and fight to preserve what remains.
Scientists and marine biologists spend a lot of time documenting particularly declines of ecosystems, and we're actually one of the few that are lucky enough to be able to get out here and try to do something about it.
A different kind of way to start your morning.
We joined the team on one of their medical missions to treat the coral. Researcher Kevin McCauley and the group mix up antibiotics into paste, filling dozens of syringes with the concoction.
The amoxicillin, though, is obviously the really important part. That's what's doing the hard work actually stopping this disease.
Up in this area might be a good area for you to head to first.
And then it's go time.
Thank you.
This is a hands-on kind of job. Scientists apply the formula directly onto the tissue of the sick coral. Then the paste slowly releases the drug.
Just like that, right onto the face of the coral, right onto that disease margin. It's a pretty obvious disease margin. There's a big white line right up against healthy tissue on the coral, so it's an obvious one to see.
I think most of us don't have fingerprints at this point because we're applying it to the corals, but whatever it takes.
The researchers document their findings, marking when they provide treatment with nails and large yellow tags.
We go back to the coral, we look around, look where the nails are and see if there's any active disease to see if that treatment was effective or ineffective.
This is one of the most coral-dense areas these researchers treat. They've tagged up to 800 corals here, and without their intervention, they aren't sure if there would be any left.
We were out here a couple weeks ago looking for some other corals for another type of project. And as we looked around, we realized that everything here was either dead or had been treated by us.
Neely's group has been implementing this method for a little over a year, and they've seen an 85% success rate. In a disease outbreak that typically kills 66 to 100% of the corals infected, the team has lost less than 1% of the corals they've treated. But it's challenging and labor-intensive to keep going underwater for a cure.
It is exhausting. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the soul for sure. Watching your backyard disappear is really hard.
We don't know necessarily when's the next time that we'll be able to come back to the site. Weather dependent and other factors play into it, so we try the best we can to go as quickly and effectively as possible.
These 4 researchers are the only ones providing these types of unique treatments in the Keys.
It's also really hard to have to bypass certain corals because we need to focus on the ones that are the most important for the ecosystem, and just kind of swimming by an animal that is in distress and going to die and having to say, sorry, good luck.
At the end of the day, this dedicated crew compare notes and reflect on the greater mission. Researchers in other parts of the Caribbean have now started using their same method to save corals infected by this very disease.
It's a good feel-good to know that without us, this reef would look very different than it does, not just now, but 5 years from now and probably 500 years from now.
Reporting from Lukey Reef, Samantha-Jo Roth, Spectrum, Bay News 9.
Sharon Nichols still has flashbacks of January 6th of last year when she spent hours locked inside her office as a mob stormed the Capitol.
I sit at that desk every day, and it does bring back those memories.
Nichols has been outspoken about her experiences that day, finding an outlet for her trauma on social media.
I was positioned on the East Front.
Her post caught the attention of Officer Harry Dunn, a 13-year veteran of the Capitol Police who defended it that day.
And I responded to her, and we just became, it was like instant.
Together, they formed a support group to help others with similar experiences navigate their feelings.
So much attention was given to the police officers from January 6th, but when you think about it, so many other people were affected by it.
The group has met 3 times so far and is open to anyone who works at the Capitol complex. Although some Republican lawmakers have downplayed the events of the 6th, Nichols says staffers who work for members on both sides have attended.
People who work here, seeing themselves in those videos, having to relive it, it's emotional.
Some of the people in the group, we text each other while the hearings are going on. Hey, are you okay?
Sergeant Arcolina Ganell says he's found the support group comforting. He suffered major foot and shoulder injuries while on duty that day and doesn't think he'll be able to work in uniform again.
It's been helpful just to know that we are not going through this whole thing alone.
For some who work here, the events that unfolded on the 6th still echo through these buildings.
I tend to start hearing the screams and everything that I went through.
Years later now, right? And for years to come, we will still be living with the impact.
And some of them say true healing will only begin when the truth about what happened on the 6th is fully known.
I mean, look at the revelations that are just coming out that we're seeing in some of these hearings. Hey, that's not closure. There won't be closure on my part until accountability has been had for the people responsible for it.
For Inside the Issues, I'm Samantha-Jo Roth.